Hey guys, King of Charmanders here. Today I bring to you Cresselia. So Cresselia, in my opinion, is the most underrated legendary for the Great League Remix, for good reason. There are dominant forces like Registeel, Deoxys Defense, as well as Mew. However, if you do have a legacy Grassnot Cresselia, or if you have someone that's willing to trade one to you, or if you have that one that you're not willing to, haven't powered up yet, because in order for you to get Cresselia with the right moveset, it needs to have Grass Knot. However, what makes Cresselia so good is it's a pure Psychic type, but it's a giant tank. So Cresselia in Go Battle League is a giant tank. In Great League, it is super bulky, and that's what makes it so good. Coupled with the fastest charging Psychic type move in the game, in Psycho Cut, you have a spammy tank. It's literally like a spam, it's like a flying duck spam tank thingy. It looks like the Jetsons duck, but it, like, that's the way I could say it. It's like a flying spam tank. Do you like spam? Do you like tanks? This is the Pokemon for you, if you have it. So Cresselia is a legendary, so it can be traded. However, usually you can only get it through Blades or that special Sinnoh research that gave a Cresselia with Grass Knot. As you see, Grass Knot is blurred out, so it is legacy. So, as with any Psychic type, pure Psychic type, it is weak to Bug, Dark, and Ghost. However, the thing about Cresselia is Cresselia has Moonblast. Because it has Moonblast, you actually have coverage against Dark and Ghost types. And because of Moonblast, you have a chance to debuff. And because of Moonblast, you actually, like I said, you have chances against Dark types. Also, Fairy types moves do take out Dragons, so you threaten Altaria, and you also threaten Fighters. So Moonblast is a very powerful move with Cresselia. Again, and you can debuff. If you get the debuff, which is a 10% chance, and you lower it by 1, it flips a lot of matchups. Now, the great thing about Cresselia, not only does it have a fantastic moveset, it has great coverage in Fighting and Psychic. You're going to see a lot of Fighting types and a lot of Psychic types. And the good thing is, even if you get a Mew with like Shadow Claw damage, Cresselia is so tanky, it's going to take a lot before Cresselia goes down to Shadow Claws or any sort, even if it's like super effective, it can take a bunch of damage before it goes down. Again, in my opinion, the most underrated legendary for the Great League Remix. Alright, so Cresselia is actually in the top 10. These are the PvPoke rankings. As I always say, please consider donating to PvPoke.com. As you see here, Cresselia ranks at number 7. It is really good in all positions, particularly as a switch. The reason why it's so good as a switch is because Cresselia has Moonblast. With Moonblast, again, like what I mentioned before, you cover a lot of things. As you see here, because you have Moonblast, you can actually take out Scrafty. You can also take out Politoed, and because it's so tanky, it takes out a lot of Charmers. That's why you take out Wigglytuff. You can also take out the Fighters, so Toxicroak and Deoxys Defense. Cresselia is one of the Psychic types where Scrafty, it kind of just laughs at Scrafty because it's like, hi, I have Moonblast. Because one Moonblast will kill a Scrafty if it hits, so just keep that in mind. As you see here, with any Psychic type, your worst nightmare is going to be Altaria Registeel. So Altaria, you can take it out with Moonblast. However, to beat Altaria, I'll go over that in the Matrix, you do need to land a couple of... I think it takes like 2 shots of Moonblast. 3 shots of Moonblast, I think? I think it's 3 Moonblasts. Unless you can like chip it down, then you can KO it 1 shot. However, your worst nightmare is essentially Bastiodon and Registeel. Registeel walls Cresselia. So, in a sense, Cresselia... I mean, if you get the debuff, you can kind of take out Registeel, but if you've ever seen Ultra League, Cresselia versus Registeel isn't a super comfortable matchup. Sableye can also just bully through Cresselia if you can't get enough Moonblast to KO it. As you see, really good in all positions, preferably as a switch. In the league, Cresselia ranks at number 19. Beating Scrafty, Politoed, Wigglytuff, Deoxys Defense, and Toxicroak as I mentioned before, and Keylosses as I mentioned before. Its best position is as a switch. It's only second to the strongest safe switch, which is Vigoroth. Now, what Cresselia has that Vigoroth doesn't is you practically beat like every fighter in the game. You blast through with Moonblast, and because of that, you also essentially annihilate Scrafty. Because of that, because you can annihilate Dark types with the Cresselia, it's really good. As you see here, in this switch, you can actually take out Altaria with Moonblast. And if you do happen to get the debuff, you flip a lot of matchups. Now, the difficult thing about Cresselia is that Psycho Cut is resisted by other Psychic types, which is why you lose against Hypno. Another thing is ghost types still have a strong matchup against you, so things like Drifblim and Jellicent are things you don't want to encounter. Jellicent maybe a little bit, because if you don't like, well, if you can grass on it, but it just really depends, so it's really up to you. And then if you close with it, as you see here, if you close with it, it's number 20, but it's still really good, so you can blast Cresselia to oblivion, you take out like all the fighters, and then all the water archetype like Politoed, you could just grass on it, so that's what makes it really, really good. And then you can, and then for Toxicroak, I mean, ironically, poison does resist, well, yeah, poison, oh, it's because Psycho Cut double super effective against Toxicroak. So you could just like Psycho Cut like Toxicroak to death, essentially. And then the really good thing is you also beat up Deoxys defense, which is also a very powerful legendary, well, it's a mythical, but yeah, it's a mythical it's a mythical Pokemon, so like, yeah, you have a really, because you resist counters, and then you resist counter, but it also resists your Psycho Cut, so it's kind of funny how it like works out. Deoxys defense can kind of rock slide its way to death with Cresselia to death, but it takes a lot of rock slide to take out Cresselia. And of course, your biggest weakness is pretty much the same thing as before. Also, without shields, it does get taken out by Charmer, so make sure you be careful of that as well. Alright, so here's the PvPoke.com matrix. As you see here, I have the Great League Remix meta to the right. I have Cresselia to the left, and I put a whole bunch of different IVs. So I'm going to modify this one to like a 10, 15, 15, or like let's just say 11, 15, 13. Because what's going to happen is you're going to get you have the chance of either one having a Cresselia that's really good IVs, or you get one traded to you. To where if it is traded to you, then hopefully you have like a good IV spread. So let's assume this one. Either way, no matter which IV you get, a rank 1 is a 2, 15, 13. So we're going to take a look and see if IVs matter, but 9 times out of 10, you're probably not going to have choice of what you're going to use. My Cresselia is actually really bad. I'm using the one I got from the Sinnoh research, and I think that was from like 2019. Yeah. Actually, 2020, yeah. I think from 2020, that GoFest 2020 for the Sinnoh throwback. But again, if you get one traded to you, you don't have a lot of choice for IV spreads, but it doesn't hurt to see, for science, basically, what attack, if an attack weight 1 or defense weight 1 does anything. So we have 2 shield here, hit battle. And as you see here, a high IV Cresselia can, actually high IVs do matter. Okay, so if you do have a high IV Cresselia, it looks like you are like, is there a bulk point? Okay, there's a bulk point. So it looks like there's a bulk point with Dragon Breath. I'm going to go over bulk points later, but it looks like there's a bulk point to where a high IV Cresselia can actually does really well. As you see here, a high IV Cresselia can actually beat Altaria in the 2 shield. So, high IV Cresselia, because you have that break point, it lives comfortably. You have to hit a Moonblast, but you can live pretty comfortably. If you go straight Moonblast, I think can you still win if they go straight Moonblast? Yeah, so you can still win going straight Moonblast. So that's how powerful a Cresselia that has a high IV is. You beat Altaria in the 2 shield. You also beat Clefable in the 2 shield. So you could beat, I think, do you beat Wigglytuff? Let's see. Okay, so a high IV will beat Wigglytuff in the 2 shield. That's really nice. So IVs do matter. As you see here in the mirror, whichever Cresselia wins CMP will win. That's why you see the mirror match, you beat Cresselia right here. However, it looks like it doesn't matter which IV you have. A crappy IV one or a high IV one will beat Dugong. You also beat Diggersby because you have Grass Knot. You beat Hypno, Lapras, Machamp, Medicham, so you beat the fighters. Now, a high IV one like here will beat Mew. I think it's just because of the Shadow Claw damage. So let's take a look. I think you can beat it. So it looks like that you can beat it if you have a 10, 11, 13, just because if you look at the IV spread, somehow there must be some kind of break or bulk point here to where like a kind of crappy Cresselia can win. So we'll take a look at that later. Does it look like it? I think you have to land a Moonblast and then you can go straight Grass Knot against a Mew. I think that's what works. A high IV one can beat Obstagoon, as you see here, so high IV does matter. You also are able to beat Shiftry, just because you're able to survive, and you can beat Shadow Victory Bell and Wigglytuff. So IVs do matter for Cresselia. A high IV Cresselia will flip a lot of matchups, for good reason. You have more HP and you have more defense, mostly more HP. As you see here, a good IV Cresselia can... Oh, you still have... Okay, so this is what's kind of tricky. You have to double bait with Grass Knot. If you can't Grass Knot, you don't KO, because you can't go straight Moonblast. You could probably win if you still have Shield Advantage, but you have to have a 1-0s or 2-0 shield advantage. Because you have to hit a Moonblast on Shiftry. As far as Obstagoon goes, I think it's the same way. You have to double bait with Grass Knot. Yep. You can't go straight Moonblast. So, actually, you can hit one Moonblast. You have to hit one Moonblast, but the rest have to be baits. You can't just go... Yeah, so you have to be very careful. You can win. The keyword is can. So you can beat Obstagoon. You can beat the Dark types, but you need to have... You need to hit a Moonblast against Dark types in the 2 shields. In the 1 shields, things get a little dicey. So if we put the 1s... As you see, IVs do matter, but it's very specific scenarios. So like I said, for the Dark typings, you need to be able to land a Moonblast. And in some scenarios, it's really iffy. So... Yeah, but as you see here in the 1 shield, you can actually take out Abomasnow. You can also take out Altaria. So, in the 1 shield with a good IV, I'm assuming... Okay, so you... Okay, so you... Do you bait... Okay, so you have to bait. You can't just go straight Grass Knot, can you? Yeah, so you have to bait. That's what's tricky. If you do have the high IV one, to flip matchups, you kind of need to bait against some... Like, one is Abomasnow. You do beat Altaria, though, because you can just straight Moonblast it. Well... You could probably just straight Moonblast it to death. Yeah, you live with 50 HP. Yeah, just go straight Moonblast. It's better to just go straight Moonblast than to bait. Yep, it wins with 69 seconds. That's a mighty fine, the greatest number of all time. That's why Cresselia wins against Altaria in the 1 shield. But that's if you have a good IV one. If you look out here, you generally beat what you can beat, but like IVs matter. But it's so specific. What I mean by specific is that anything with a 500 rating is really close. So yes, you can beat Excavalier. However, you see this? You have to bait with Grass Knot. And this is assuming that no counters go through your Moonblast. Because if you shield the Mega Horn, you're fine. If you don't shield it, you're kind of screwed. But it's very specific. Same thing with Lafrost. It's like these matchups are super specific. As you see, you beat Hypno. You're also able to beat Jellicent with a high IV one, just because I believe you can just go straight Grass Knot. So as you see here, you can block the Shadow Ball and just go straight Grass Knot, which is the play. So you could beat Jellicent, you could beat a lot of things, basically the things that are weak to Grass, and Moonblast, Cresselia would do very well against. It looks like the Attack Weight one can win the 1 shield. This is just way too specific. Do not depend on it. If you get an Attack Weight Cresselia, just don't do it. Just don't do it. Attack Weight can flip matchups, but I don't recommend it. As you see here, with a Raid IV one, you can possibly beat Shiftry in the 1 shield, and you beat Shadow Victory Veil, Vigoroth, Witchcash, Wigglytuff. So you beat a wide variety of matchups as a super tank. And IVs do matter, but like I said, they're so close that it's probably going to make your brain hurt, and it really matters if it's like no energy advantage, 1 HP in a dream. So it's very, very, very iffy. In the zeros, things don't get too much better. Well, actually in the zeros, things are kind of like pretty simple, because like you just blast everything to death. You just Moonblast or Grass Knot accordingly. That's what I'm trying to say. As you see here, you can beat Meganium if you have a good IV one. So good IVs flip a good IV Cresselia does flip matchups. As you see here, it looks like a defense weight one can somehow beat Munchlax, but I wouldn't even bank on it. I don't see Munchlax being super popular in this meta just because it can get punched down by fighters. As you see here, you beat, like I mentioned, if you could beat it with Grass Knot or if you could beat it with Moonblast, 9 times out of 10 you do beat it. Now, what beats Cresselia? Things that are big tanks, things that do heavy damage, Charm, like Wigglytuff, and Dark types as well as Ghost types. Also, anything that has a Ghost type move will take you out. So if it has a Ghost type move or a Dark type move, 9 times out of 10 it probably can kill you. Or, rule number 2, if it resists psychic attacks. That's why Excavalier and Ferrothorn can beat Cresselia, just because of the fact they resist Psycho Cut. If you have shield advantage here, you're doing great. As you see here, shield advantage allows you to basically beat anything that doesn't wall you. Another thing, because you are a set, remember when I mentioned you get walled by steel types? Guess what? That means Registeel, Bastiodon, and Ferrothorn are going to destroy you in most scenarios. If you see any of these 3, Registeel. If you actually, Melmetal can kill you too, right? Can't Mel just... Yeah, can't Mel kill you? I forgot about Melmetal. Melmetal's also... Okay, so you can beat Melmetal just because it's really... You can beat Melmetal, but you can't beat Registeel, Bastiodon, or Ferrothorn, as you see here. Other than that, you can beat Melmetal and Excavalier, so just keep that in mind. This is with shield advantage, though, so this is with shield advantage. If you don't have shield, if you're in the even shield scenarios, do you lose against Melmetal? Oh, no, you still beat it. Okay, so... If it's not Melmetal or Excavalier, just note, if it's Registeel, Bastiodon, you probably are going to die. So just keep that in mind. In the 2-0s, Cresselia beats everything, I'm guessing, but the steel type. So you don't beat Bastion. Oh, you can beat Bastion. Wait, what? So it beats everything but Registeel. That's hilarious. Oh my god, it can even beat Bastiodon. So the 2-0s, Cresselia can grass not down a Bastion to death, but it cannot defeat the big mighty trash can called Registeel. So just keep in mind, Cresselia's worst matchup is Registeel. In the 2-1s, things get pretty interesting. Well, not really interesting. In the 2-1s, basically what happens is that you lose Driplim, Driplim, Mandibuzz. So basically 2 matchups. Driplim, Mandibuzz, and Munchlax. Sableye is a ghost type, so it will kill you with those Shadow Claws plus Foul Play. And Mandibuzz also gives you a nightmarish matchup just because Mandibuzz is able to it's a super tank and it does have Foul Play. So just keep mindful of that. If you do go against Mandibuzz, you have to you have to Moonblast it to death. But keep in mind that Mandibuzz has a really strong matchup, and the only scenario you beat it in most of the time is 2-0. So, again, Dark types, Ghost types, or anything that resists Psychic type attacks are probably going to give you a hard time. Also, something like Venusaur, for example, Poison resists Grass and Grass and Fairy. Because of that, 9 times out of 10, Cresselia will lose against Venusaur. Example proven here. Example, here's Venusaur, and then we hit... But the Venusaur isn't in the Great League Movement, so you don't have to worry about it. Oh wait, it does win. Oh. Never mind, I lied. Well, you lose except all scenarios, but yeah, I forgot. Venusaur is actually banned. Ignore those last 5 seconds of those... Ignore that last minute information. I forgot Venusaur is banned. Shadow Victory Bell can wall you, though, but you can... Just for science, to make sure this evil flying Venus Flytrap isn't trying to kill you, let's see, you can beat it in the ones... you can only beat it in the 1 shield, so be very careful about Shadow Victory Bell. Shadow Victory Bell is mighty, and it can kill you. Really comfortable. Alright, so if we're going to build a team with Cresselia, just make sure you can kill Shadow Victory Bell. I'm just kidding. Cresselia can kill Shadow Victory Bell just fine. So Cresselia is it's good in all positions, but you want to use it as a safe switch. The difficult thing is that you're very it's just you have to have counters against Registeel and Bastiodon. Also against Ghost types. So... It's really interesting. Actually, the funny thing is if you have Cresselia with Scrafty, it actually does pretty well. Now, you're probably going to get now, you have to be careful about Charmers, but if you put Cresselia and Scrafty, ironically, if you look at this combination, not a lot of coverage, but you're pretty bulky and safe, just because this combination does very well. As you see here, if you put a... Let's see, let's put another Mon in the back that could beat... Let's just do... Well, you don't want 2 Pokemon with the Bastiodon. So, with Cresselia, let's see... Magnezone, Melmetal. Let's do Melmetal just out of habit. Because Melmetal can superpower its way to victory. As you see here, pretty good coverage. Wow, that did take as long as I thought. Now, the bad thing about this team is Sableye. Sableye's return does give you a little bit of a hard time, but as you see here, you can take it down. So, this is a pretty safe, pretty good team, as you see right here. Again, Cresselia, Scrafty helps you out just because of the fact that Scrafty beats the unholy crud out of Bastiodon as well as Registeel. Just make sure Scrafty doesn't get Focus Blasted, because if it gets Focus Blasted, you are going to die. It is that simple. So, other things that Cresselia pairs well with, Cresselia also pairs well with Altaria. Altaria does really well against a lot of the ghost archetypes. So, as you see here, unless it's Drifblim, then you're kind of in trouble. But, if you could avoid Drifblim, you're fine. But just keep that in mind. If you see Drifblim, it's probably going to kill you. So, so now, when you look at something that we could use in the back, we don't want something that's weak to Drifblim. So, let's see, what can we use? We can use something that drops rocks. Melmetal would do well with this team, just because Melmetal could drop rocks on Drifblim. As you see here, and this team, I'm pretty sure this has a pretty good threat score. Or just good, yeah, this still does good overall. As you see, pretty good team. Again, Cresselia and Altaria pair well, just because Altaria does beat a lot of those Dark and Ghost types, except for Drifblim. Drifblim gives you a hard time, so make sure if you do put Altaria and Cresselia together, make sure you beat Drifblim. However, good way to solve this is just using Registeel or Melmetal. So if you put this combination together, as you see here, this team is very, very powerful and does really, really well. A 609 threat score. Your biggest issue being Registeel because of Cresselia and Altaria. However, you can chip away at Registeel or just throw Registeel and Registeel. It's really up to you. Registeel can handle Bastiodon if you Focus Blasted to death, so it's just really up to you and how you want to do things. It's also a problem against Bastiodon because ideally you want to catch Bastiodon or Registeel into this one. But again, just make sure you be aware of Bastiodon if you plan on putting Cresselia and Altaria together. Now, Cresselia, Cresselia matches so well with so many other things. Just because, like I said, it's a great safe switch, has great general coverage. It's like Deoxys defense, except it's still expensive. Oh, yeah, it's still expensive. If you want to, you can pair it with Poliwrath. Poliwrath actually does really well with Dynamic Punch and Ice Punch, as you see here. Covers the flyers, and, well, doesn't necessarily cover the flyers, because even though Ice Punch does super effective damage against Tropius, and against Altaria, you're gonna have to be careful with it. But Poliwrath, as you see, does really well combo-wise. And let's see, we need to cover Bastion. Well, let's see. I'm trying to figure something out. Poliwrath beats Bastion, and also beats Registeel, so you have coverage against that. Let's do Mandibuzz, just to give you that extra, like, Psychic type weakness, or, like, just to basically against Psychic types. As you see here, really good. So, bulky. Basically, you just have to be careful with Registeel. You could lead with Poliwrath, you could lead with Mandibuzz if you want to with this combination, but this team does really well with a 661. Magnezone, Ferrothorn, Swalot is your work weakness. As you see, Cresselia does mesh well. I would say use it as a safe switch or a lead, because you don't want Cresselia to get locked into a Registeel or Bastion and back, so as with anything that loses to Bastion or Regi, make sure you have it in the lead or a safe switch, or you have two things that can beat Registeel or Bastion. That's the general way to build around Cresselia. Other than that, you can use it as a safe switch. Use it to draw out the Bastion, beat the crap out of Bastion with a Scrafty, and then nuke anything in the back. So you could do some strategy like that. So you can try to nuke out, you can try some ABB strat, like trying to draw out something, but if it doesn't have it, it's going to suck. But Cresselia does really well in a lot of teams. Again, the way to beat Cresselia, Dark and Ghost types. Dark and Ghost is a pretty simple way to do it. If you have a Dark, if you have a Ghost type, or if you wall it with Registeel and Bastion, 9 times out of 10 you can probably beat it, unless Cresselia has 2 shield. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and that's it. The thing about Cresselia is that it's kind of hard to get a Grass Knot one unless you have one already, but if you don't have a Deoxys defense, or you're looking for someone that might have better generalist coverage, look no further than maybe Cresselia. Cresselia might be able to give you a good coverage with your team. It is a fantastic safe switch. It actually beats Deoxys. It barely beats Deoxys defense as far as safe switch coverage, but however, that gives you another Psychic safe switch if you really like it. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, Cresselia is really hard to get. However, there's plenty of options to switch to it. So if you can't use Cresselia, things like Vigoroth, the ever cheap, it's not cheap. You got Mew, you got Vigoroth, you got Mew. There's plenty of other safe switches out there that can work for the Great League Remix. But again, if you want a Psychic safe switch that has great coverage and you don't have a DD and you have a Cresselia, maybe Cresselia might work for you. If you haven't done so yet, please like and subscribe. Good luck on your Go Battle League sets, and I will see you guys on the next video.
Ciao!